Okay, are we rolling?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're not here live on the call, then you might be listening to this as a replay, and that's fine. I'm really delighted and excited to welcome you to Release Limits from Client Relationships, and how some of our wonderful panel people who went through the course, how they have learned how to do that and how to apply what they've learned at the 3-day awakening, what's called the Awakening Retreat. That's coming up May 15th through 17th here in Austin. And so Mary Lynn Thompson and Lynn DeBeer Johnson, who you probably all know, and Kimberly Ward have all agreed to be with us to be a panel on their experience of awakening training. They took it as a 4-day training. We'll be offering it here as a 3-day training. And let me just start by introducing myself so I don't forget to do that. I'm Laura Fine, and I am the director of the Transpersonal Energy Healing certification program here at the Institute of Nutritional Endocrinology, led by the amazing, wonderful Dr. Ritamarie who you probably, most of you on the call know of her incredible work. And I feel super honored to be a part of this organization and a part of this team and a part of somebody who is so extremely committed to bringing the highest integrity and the highest quality of support to her practitioners in order for them to reach and help heal their clients. So you're probably on this call because you are a health coach or a health practitioner or nutritionist or somebody in the body-mind field or somebody who wants to have a practice, who is studying and learning to have that as a practice. Whatever your area of expertise or training, this work really will help you to work with your clients in a very profound way. So what is this awakening course? What does that mean and what is it? And well, what this is the Transpersonal Energy Healing Practitioner Training provides a natural guidance system so that you can establish rapport and reach the core of the client's issues quickly and effectively to facilitate their own healing. So as you know, as a practitioner, if you're sitting with somebody working with them on their nutrition or on their food or their health concerns, we are holistic in nature. We're physical beings, we're emotional beings, we're psychological beings, and we're spiritual beings. And if we work just with the intellect, we won't be able to really facilitate the kind of profound shift or healing that person might very much need to be able to get better. So let me just give you one example of that. There was a study done. There's a beautiful book called Cancer as a Turning Point by Dr. Larry LeShan, who I had the privilege of meeting and actually having a few sessions with as a client myself. He's like 90-something years old now, bless his heart. He's amazingly brilliant. He was a psychologist working in a hospital, in a cancer hospital, back in the 80s when cancer was a sure death sentence for anybody who was diagnosed with cancer. And he was working with these people, and he got so burnt out and so devastated because every one of his clients was dying. They were all stage 4 cancer people. So he decided that he had to take a break. He had to take a sabbatical and go off and kind of re-examine his own life and decide, do I want to keep doing this? So he took a vacation on a Greek island, and while he was there sort of resting and recovering from his own trauma and his own stress of this work, he saw 2 teenage girls on the beach who were just like playing and alive and vibrant and having this great, great time. And watching them, he had this epiphany. And the epiphany that he had was that they were so full of aliveness and life force that he realized that he kept looking at his clients to see what was wrong with them instead of what was right with them. And he came back from that epiphany and he started to look at where that individual had lost their aliveness, had lost their spark for life, had lost their joy, had lost what turned them on. And when he found that with them, it turned on their immune system. And 50% of his end-stage terminally diagnosed cancer patients went into remission. It's a beautiful, beautiful, true story of what happened. And you could say that in this work of the awakening, that's what we are doing. We are waking up to what is right within us and teaching us as practitioners how to find that within our client in order to help them have an energetic shift out of the pathology of that frequency of negativity and dis-ease that is making them so ill. This is a very simplified description that I'm giving you, but it's very powerful. And the great news is when we come together to do live work together, something really magical gets to happen that we don't quite get to have over a Zoom call like this. So that's what the awakening is all about. It teaches us how to use a unique form of counseling, of verbal inquiry to enhance your client's body-mind awareness by tracking the movement of the energy through their chakra energy system. And the great news is anyone can learn how to do this, and it's not so mysterious. It's not so weird. It's not so like, God didn't come along and tap you on the head, not you, with this psychic ability to perceive subtle energy and chakras and auras, and we all can do that. It's innately inborn in us. Now, why is that useful? Like, why should I even care about perceiving energy and chakras and auras? Well, if you're a health practitioner, it's imperative for you to be able to execute some skills, certain skills like how to be fully present with your client, not to be worried about how they're going to react or what will they do if I say something wrong, or not to be worried about the future, what I could do wrong, or dwelling in the past of how, last session they were really frustrated and pissed off at me. So how to be fully present in present time is essential. How to recognize when your client is stuck and help them shift out of that stuckness. And also how to recognize when we're stuck as the practitioner and how to shift out of that. It's imperative to learn how to create professional warmth and rapport with your clients, and how to do that in a way that helps them to feel safe and feel connected with you and bonded with you. How to respond effectively. If your client is crying hysterically, what do you do? How do you help them? How do you know whether those tears are productive or destructive? Well, all of that we're going to cover and talk about and learn about in the awakening. You're going to learn how to manage emotions. You're going to learn how emotions and beliefs are connected to each other and how they facilitate healing or impede healing. You're going to learn how to listen without judgment. You're going to learn how to keep your ego, which is another code word for insecurities, out of the way of a session of being with and being present for your client. You're going to learn how to create a healing relationship. You're going to learn how to have clear and healthy boundaries so you don't get sick just because your client is sick, or you don't feel depressed just because they're depressed, or so a lot of people who are empaths go into service professions and you feel everything in your body that your client is feeling. If they say they have a stomach ache, you start feeling it in your body. Well, that's no fun. It's already no fun that they have a stomach ache. You don't need to have a stomach ache with them to be compassionate for their stomach ache. But some of us do that without knowing how we do that or why we do that, and that it impacts our own health and our own well-being. You're going to learn how to be compassionately supportive. So how does that happen in just 3 days' time? Well, there are some skills, some real concrete skills that you're going to learn. It's a very packed 3 days. You're going to hear from our panelists in just a few minutes of how rapidly I move that course along. Like you're not you're not getting lectured at too much. You're up and doing and experiencing, and it's through what I call experiential learning that this happens. So one of the skills we'll learn about is how to turn fear into life force, where you can find the gift that's at the core of the wound that we carry with us, most of us, or many of us, from our early childhood. Many of us grew up in a dysfunctional home life, or we might have had trauma in our history. And there are patterns that emerge to help us survive those early historical challenges. And those patterns are beautiful adaptations that helped us survive then, but they show up now in our adult life as limitations, like perhaps insecurity or lack of confidence or mistrust or negativity or despair or depression. There are a reason those patterns are there, and we're going to find out why and how it is that they show up and what we can begin to do to shift them. We're going to learn how to stop what I call the victim, blame, and rescuer cycle. Many of us, and certainly those of you who have practices, hear your clients use a lot of victim language, like, oh God, I'm so sick, I can't do anything. And it's not that there isn't truth to what they're telling you, but you know, they might go on to say, well, if I hadn't, gotten those, shots when I was 2 years old for vaccinations, or if I hadn't, eaten all that junk food through my teenage years, or, there's a lot of victim language, and we're going to learn how to work with that language, not to negate it or discount it, but how to empower that person for themselves. We're going to learn about reactivity and how to develop what we call the objective observer, how to observe our own reactivity instead of be a victim to our reactivity, and how to find our essential self, that part of us that is absolutely perfect, that knows how to heal itself. That's that part that I explained in that story with Larry the Shan about how we ignite our immune system, our natural self-correcting healing mechanism, when we are connected to that essential self of ours. You're going to learn how to open up the chakra system with a set of exercises that I call the All Systems Go warm-up, which really opens up the entire system, that will help you to move that stuck or blocked energy or emotional energy, or release the grip of locked up limiting belief systems that haven't helped us. And you're going to learn how to be centered and grounded through a technique called the Hara, alignment with the Hara. And you're going to learn a 3-step heart-centered meditation that is absolutely beautiful, that will really help you to connect to your essential self and cultivate those qualities. You're going to learn how to help others heal by learning how to actually run healing energy, and the practical grounded use of that, and how you can appropriately use that with your clients when they're sitting there with you, to put a hand on them in a way that really can be super powerful. And then we're going to learn about energy boundaries, how you can take care of yourself energetically so that you don't take on other people's stuff. So I'm going to exhale now. And that was a cliff note about what happens. And now what I'd love to do is just introduce to you some of our panel, Kimberly and Mary Lynn and Lynn. And I'm going to ask you guys to first start by just, if you would, just each of you take a moment to introduce yourself and say what you are actually doing in your work right now and in your practices right now. So maybe just tell them a little bit about that. So Kimberly, would you like to go ahead and get us started?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I have been practicing as a nutrition coach for many, many years. The last few years I've been certified as a trauma therapist as well. So my specialty is really working with people that have a physical illness rooted in trauma and stress. So I don't know how much more you want me to say about that, Laura, or just kind of explaining that what I do daily now is specializing in trauma and stress. Yeah.
That's great. Just by way of introduction, we're going to come back and ask you more in just a minute. Mary Lynn, do you want to check in too and just say a little bit about what you do right now?
Sure. I haven't really had a practice for...
Can you be a little bit louder?
Oh, yes. I can get closer. Is this
great?
Better?
That's perfect.
Better? Okay. I was saying I haven't really had a practice for around 2 years. I am a student in the NEPT program and primarily joined that for my own healing and then hoping to share with others. But I found I really wasn't showing up for people. I didn't have the energy and the stamina to be there for clients, and so I had to give that up. And so that was not that was not in my plan. But I'm now beginning to see clients again and have some success. So I'm looking forward to sharing a little more about that. How that.
Great. Thank you, Mary Lynn. And Lynn.
Hi. As many of you may realize, I work with Dr. Ritamarie. I also have my own business. You can see the website, Feeding Your Health. And I help people to feed their body and nourish their spirit. And so I use these tools frequently.
Great. Thank you, Lynn. So Lynn, why don't we continue on with you for just a moment? And I'd love you to just share a little bit about what you were struggling with before you attended the awakening. What were some of your challenges and struggles with your clients in your practice before you took the awakening course?
A lot of it had to be people, not how to react. When people would say, I don't know what to do, they'd break down and cry. They'd get defensive or resistant. And I didn't know what to do. I'd been studying all about the body. I could certainly tell you all about that. But I was just going by my own gut reactions. And that doesn't always work so well. So, yeah. So those were my struggles.
Yeah, thank you for that. So getting defensive and not knowing how to react when somebody was crying or what to do. What do I do? I'm doing this work as a health coach with these people, and now what? So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Kimberly, how about you? What were you struggling with before you did this work?
The awakening came to me at a perfect time because I was struggling more with how to define myself as a therapist, because I was doing trauma therapy and I was doing this nutritional coaching, and I really hadn't yet kind of stepped into my own power. I don't know what other word to use. So what it did for me was it gave me, on a personal level, gave me the ability to kind of own myself, own my talents, be confident and proud of the talents that I had. And it gave me tons of skills to use with clients. And I still, to this day, almost every day with a client, I'm using something I learned at the awakening or at the other advanced trainings that I've done with Laura. But truly, the awakening weekend for me was awakening to my own essence as a healer, and my ability to really be proud and own that this is who I am and what I do. And I've been so afraid of my ego kind of taking over as a therapist. And I don't like the idea of I'm healing you. I'm a healer, so therefore I'm healing you, because my whole thing is empowering my clients to find that healer within, right? Like really learning how to ignite their own inner healer. And I'm there as a supportive tool. And this class, this weekend gave me confidence as well as skills to kind of step into that role and just own it. And just now I rock it. I'm like, I think I told Laura the other day, it catapulted my practice in a different way that I ever would have expected. And now it's just magical.
That is so exciting to hear. And thank you for sharing all that. And, you know, the other thing that's kind of amazing about it is that even though you'd been working professionally in the field already for a long time, it sounds like, before you came to this work, it was like this work provided a piece that just hadn't been there for you. And now that you have this piece, like, as you said, of your own essence, it's catapulted you in your work and in yourself, and it's catapulting your clients too, which I know you'll share more about in a minute. So we'll come back to that too, Kimberly. Thank you. And Mary Lynn, how about for you? What were you did just a minute ago, you said a little bit of what you were struggling with yourself, some of your own health issues and things like that, but that now you are back and to seeing clients again yourself. So is there anything else that you think that some of the people on the call might identify with as far as some of the struggles that they might be having, like what attracted you to this profession? I mean, because it sounds like you wanted to do this not just for your own healing as a health coach, but also because you want to be a health coach and that you have something that you want to give and be of service to other people with. So I'd love you to share a little bit more about that and about your reasons for, where you were before you started this piece of your work.
Yeah, yes, I was having some success in the program in NEPT, and
just be just a little louder again, if you would.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, thank you.
I was having some success, just feeling a bit more energy, but like I said, something was missing. Something was eluding me, and I did have these feelings of not being enough. I'm too old. Time is past. It's too late for me, and so that's when Dr. Ritamarie kind of pointed me in the direction of Laura Fine, and so I had a couple of big ahas that I can share. I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
Actually, you're doing great, and I'd love to have you share one of your big ahas that happened in the class, in the awakening class.
So I was noticing that in the past I had been showing up energetically with people. That wasn't working, and why that wasn't working.
Can you describe that a bit? Like when you say how you were showing up energetically in the past, can you describe how were you showing up in the past?
I think I felt like I was often fragmented. I was quick to react instead of being able to be present and respond. I was just reacting. I felt overwhelmed, and I learned that I wasn't really aware of this, and the other person cannot even be aware of this energetic connection that's not serving either one of us. Neither one of us are aware of what's going on. And I had a lot of fear. I had a big fear of that I just really wasn't even aware of. It was so pervasive. It was sort of like of how a fish is not aware of the water that it's swimming in. And so that's what I think a big piece of what was eluding me all that time. And I thought I was pretty good because I had been studying how the mind and the body work together for years. And I had all these techniques and these activities, but
so what was your so what was your one of your aha moments that began to shift that and wake up that awareness for you?
Just that by being able to practice being in my body on a regular daily basis, sometimes several times a day, to be in my body so I could notice and I could feel how I felt. And that's when I noticed, oh, there is something else here that I've not been aware of before, this fear that's separating me from other people, from clients, from family members. And it was really getting in the way. And other people were reacting to that and not really wanting to be around me, I think. So it was the application of that, of all those things that I already knew, plus new ones that I was learning from Laura, to be present in my body so that I could be more responsive to people that I was in a relationship with. And that was a big aha of how that I could do that and I could experience it. And I knew how I felt that it was different than in the past.
Boy, that's so profound, really, what you just shared. And that being in the body, do you recall, like, did that happen because of the chakra opening exercises, or was there a particular exercise where you had sort of an epiphany? I mean, there might have been multiple things, I don't know, and you don't have to answer that, but I'm just wondering if there was a particular moment in one of the exercises that might have, kind of brought that awareness to you.
I do know that the chakra exercises were key, and particularly because they were simple things that I could do every day that kept me in that space so that I can manage my overwhelm and my fears. Beautiful. And then there were several others of the activities that we did in class that were also key. And I can't really pick out one in particular because it was a lot.
That's okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. That was super helpful. Kimberly, how about you? Is there an aha moment or when, like this transition that you talked about, like a really sort of coming into your power? How did that happen for you? Can you recall how that, what transpired?
Yes, it was, I had done a lot of work through other trauma trainings that I had done on learning to get ground and be in my body. And then I didn't know now what? Now I'm in my body, but what's next? And what I learned through, especially that first weekend with the awakening, was my fear, okay, now I'm here in my body, but I still had this resistance to being seen and being heard. You can't build a business if you're afraid of being seen and being heard. And so that was so helpful for me to learn to see the resistance that I wasn't aware of, and then to be able to have the tools to do something with it, right? And so the exercises and activities that we did, and then the support, because we work on each other, right? We help each other and we learn these things together while working on each other. That, so the partners that I had in that weekend really helped me have clarity around my discomfort of being seen and heard, and really had a clearing. I remember doing some hands-on work, and I had a real intense clearing around my throat chakra and around speaking my truth. And after that, I was much more able to reach out and speak up. This is what I do now. I have this business and I can help you. And that was horrifying to me before that weekend. Absolutely horrifying.
Yeah. That's powerful. And now that you talk about it, I remember that moment in class when what you're describing. So beautiful. Thank you so much. Lynn, how about you? Is there a particular aha moment, epiphany moment that you can share? I mean, I think for all of us, there's actually many.
Yeah, I was just going to say multiple. It was, they just kind of built and built and built. Part of it for me was boundaries. Boundaries was a really big issue for me. And understanding, I understood boundaries. Didn't mean I did it. Didn't mean I practiced it. And the boundary work that we did, especially the energetic boundary work, has helped me with my voice. And I was already doing some chakra work. So combining that with the chakra work we did during that weekend, and just recognizing these boundaries. Even though it was an overview of the characterology, helped me to understand more about myself, and also allowed me to observe other people. And so understanding myself, that it's okay to have these boundaries, that this is mine and that is yours, helped me to be more aware of that other person, because I was safe. If I feel safe within my boundary, it's okay for me to be present, to be aware of myself, and to be better aware of the other person, and to better understand both their gifts and their wounds. Like you said at the beginning of the class, that we always have this tendency to look at what's wrong. Well, now we get to see what's right and good. And in fact, that's the first thing I say to people when they come to me is, so what's good with you? and that really throws a, it doesn't fit the tape of what. And so that boundary was a really big thing for me.
That's great. I love how you described that. And I think you made such a really important point when you said, just because I understood boundaries didn't mean I did them or I implemented them. And then to be able to begin to implement them. And this is one of the wonderful things that happens when we're in a group community of support and we see other people trying it on and surviving, asserting a boundary, and, oh, I can do this and not be filled with shame or die, or, because we are the lab experiment together. And Kimberly kind of touched on that too a bit, that we're all sort of having this opportunity to try on and try out these new ways of being that we're learning about in a safe environment, in a safe setting, so that then when we leave there, we can actually go home and implement them in our professional practices with our clients and with our significant others. And boundaries is such a huge one in relationships too. And it extends into our interpersonal and our personal relationships with family, with friends, because if we can't hold boundaries with clients, we're really not, what we do with one person, we do with everybody. It's just a matter of time or situation before that shows up. So if we have weak boundaries with our clients, we probably also have weak boundaries with our family members and with our children and with, our significant others and with our mother-in-law, whoever our employer or our employee. I had a couples clients that I worked with that the guy always worked overtime, and it was practically destroyed their marriage because he couldn't say no to his boss without this horrible, horrible fear that he would be fired. So boundaries are such an important component of this work. So I'd love
Can I say one other thing?
Yeah, sure.
So one thing with that too, and especially since most of us are health practitioners, is understanding how that it affects them emotionally, but how it brings them to a better level of health, because helping them to establish boundaries too helps them to determine next steps for themselves and feel okay about doing that for themselves and for their own health.
That's exactly right. Like if we don't learn how to have healthy boundaries ourselves as the practitioner, we won't be able to communicate that or convey that to our clients who are in desperate need of boundaries for themselves too. So I'm so glad that you brought that out. That's hugely important in the healing process. So I'd love to, Kimberly, you kind of briefly gave us a real cliff note on a client success that happened recently for you. And I'd love to see if you would be open to sharing that with the group. And before you do, however, if those of you who are live on the call with us right now, if you have questions and you want to start to send them via chat to Lynn, we're going to take about 5 minutes more or so, and then open it up for Q&A to anybody who might have questions about anything that we've talked about so far. So Kimberly, do you want to share how has this affected your clients, your practice with your clients? So any case examples you can give us, of course, anonymously, but.
Mm-hmm. Well, honestly, every training that I've done with Laura, I've been able to come back and implement skills that I learned immediately with my clients. So then when I'd come back with the group and have story after story to share about amazing client results. So I can't think of one off the top of my head, but what I will say is that I have so many tools now in my toolbox that I'm never nervous or uncomfortable with a client, because I know I have something somewhere in my toolbox that I can pull out. And I just feel so safe and trusting in the process after all this training, that I can be with my client, fully present with my client, and whatever shows up, we'll get through it. And that makes life so nice as a practitioner, when you're really that confident in your ability to support them in one way or another. And what I would like to share is that I recently got a phone call from a practitioner I work with. She's a functional medicine doctor out in Seattle. 75% of my clients I work with virtually. So although I do love seeing people in person, I am growing quite an online business. And I work with this wonderful doc out there, and she called me to thank me, to say thank you, because the clients that I work with, her patients that I'm working with, are doing so much better than all of her other patients. It was such nice validation to hear from this doctor that I respect so much. To get that feedback was just phenomenal. And truly, I knew a lot before learning this work, but what this work did for me was I came into my own sense of self as a practitioner, and I have so many tools now to work with clients that I just feel so confident going into every client session that I don't question the process. It's just there. And I thank you, Laura, for that. And I don't know what else to say. I could give you a gazillion client stories because I have so many, but I think it's such good feedback to hear from a physician who I'm working with, that these patients are really significantly improving faster and easier than her other clients.
That's so wonderful. I love that story. And I love it because it's true that it has medical benefits. Just to work with the energy creates medically beneficial healing. I like stuff that's grounded in reality. I'm not a big woo-woo person. I used to be many, many, many years ago, but it's like, no. I knew that I was much more attracted to the energy work from a very grounded, practical way. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. And I just want to say one other thing. I want all of you to know that this is not about, I'm not the brilliant one here. The brilliant one lives within your client and within each of you. The only thing that I do that I love to do so much is give you the opportunity to explore and experiment with finding that brilliance through experiential learning. And so if I have a brilliance, it's in that, giving you the experiences to find your own brilliance within yourself. So and that makes it fun and joyful and playful. We have a good time in classes. This is not like this, we laugh a lot because we're experiencing. So it's kind of the way little kids learn through play. We get to do a lot of play, but it's really profound play because you're discovering your essential self in that play. It's a very directed kind of play. Lynn, did you want to share any kind of client experience that you might have had, or what you're seeing, how it's impacting your practice?
I have a couple things. One is on a personal level. I spent the last over a week with my mom, who'd had hip replacement surgery, and I was resistant to it, but I went with an open heart that I could hear my mom, and so we did a lot of sharing, it wasn't that anything was magically resolved. Like she suddenly had this great love and understanding for me, which she loves me. She's my mom. But it was that I understood her. I understood why sometimes she needs to ramble on ad nauseum about things, why she needed to always be saying, hey, listen to me. I'm not going to listen to you right now. You need to listen to me. And I loved her because I understood her. And it's the same principle with my clients. I don't look at them as somebody I need to fix. I looked at it as creating this space. So this morning I had a client that I've been working with, and we did a lot of the more physical pieces, and then she said some things, and I reflected it back to her, and she went, that's a really good point. and then we talked about it, but at the end of that particular session, which again, through my work with you, I understand the importance of, because I realized before I was letting the client just kind of end the session whenever. And so through learning with you, I had more confidence in saying, okay, now that we've got a few minutes left, let's wrap this up. And this is what we did in the beginning, and this is what we did at the end. And so she was saying that when she came in, she was real tense and everything because she has all these things that are wrong. And now she feels safe. And for her, that was very profound. But it's because of what I've learned here.
That's great. Thank you for that, Lynn. And I love the point that you made about how when you reflected back what she said, then she said, that's a really good point. And it was her own point.
Exactly.
She was able to really hear again, the brilliance that lived within her. And you didn't have to be brilliant. You didn't have to have that pressure of being brilliant. All you had to do was reflect her brilliance to her. And she had an aha moment as a result, which is great.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And again, this just really goes back to, again, a lot of these people are learning through Dr. Ritamarie, and we're all about root cause and always asking why. And this is, to me, the biggest why factor of all.
Great. Mary Lynn, do you have a real quickie that you can toss in so that we have some time for Q&A?
Okay. I can talk about, because I don't really have very many clients, so I don't really have a lot of stories to share, but I can say that now that I'm aware of my emotions are not reacting, that I am more present, because I can still get triggered. Things that those old messages of I'm not enough and I'm too old and all the others, they can still come up, but now I know what it's about and I know what to do about it. So it's much easier for me to be with my client, and if I do get triggered, it doesn't last very long. And I have, as Lynn talked about with her mother, I'm also noticing this is really useful for me to use with my family members, which is always very challenging to family. It's like way more difficult. And it's not the same thing as working with the client because it's a different kind of situation, but the tools are still applicable. You just tweak it a little bit, and so I've found a lot of benefit there as well.
Great, that's great. Thank you so much for that. And I love, again, what you shared about how really it's almost like you've had a personality shift. It sounds like from what you described for yourself, like, because you were sharing earlier that people didn't even, you felt that people didn't like to be around you and that you were so reactive. And now there's just so much this, and I can feel it as I even as I listen to you, this sort of calm centeredness that's within you right now that it sounds like might not have been there, at least not so prominently before. So good job. Yeah.
I think you could say that. There's a sense of trust of myself.
Beautiful.
That I can be present.
Beautiful. So do we have any questions from those of you who are with us on the call?
I don't see anything typed in yet.
Okay.
So,
we could also
you
do
can type it in the chat, or if you are comfortable with it, you can unmute yourself and share your question.
Well, I think what I could say then, if we don't have any questions, and you guys can be thinking, because we have a few minutes more, is that, you know, opportunities to do training live anymore it's kind of less, you know, less than what it used to be before Zoom and before, you know, there's so much online learning. And online learning is great, and we're doing it right now actually, but there are certain things that when we meet in person to do interactive work, there's something that is speeded up, you could say quantum, like a quantum pace increased. And so there's an opportunity that happens when we come together live in a group, in a community, to learn together. That is, you could say it's like the equivalent of 6 months of therapy in 3 days, you know, or maybe a year even, of epiphanies and ahas and internal transformation that has the opportunity to happen. So for those of you who are considering this, I'd love to have you jump on board. We still have space left, and it's coming up in about 3 weeks. So there's that opportunity.
Can I speak to that too?
Yeah.
When I did your training with you, you know, I had to fly out there, and I really questioned whether I should do that. You know, leaving work, my family, all that. I am forever grateful that I did it that way instead of this way, because the experience of doing it right there, really being in that space with all those people and feeling that love and support, Zoom and virtuality is a wonderful thing, but it's not quite the same thing. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Lynn. That's great.
And Michelle has a question.
Yes, I see that in the chat. So, so Michelle's question: as someone who has just completed Laura's great exceptional therapist course, what may be some activities and exercises I might want to focus on between now and the retreat? Yeah, great question, Michelle. What I would suggest to you is practice opening the chakras, doing the chakra opening exercises that are in the videos that are in the Exceptional Therapist book. For those of you who don't know what she's talking about, if you go to my website, which is laurafineonline.com, laurafineonline.com, and you go to the books and CDs, the Exceptional Practitioner, thank you, Lynn, the Exceptional Practitioner course is an ebook that you can purchase that really would help you prepare for this training. This training, the Awakening training, is actually module 4 of a new certification program that's happening. There will be 7 modules. And so, you know, if you were to decide after you took this training that, wow, you really like it and you wanted to get a certification in transpersonal energy healing, then this would also credit or count toward that certification for you. And also this online self-study course, the Exceptional Practitioner course that Michelle's referring to, is module 1 of the 7 modules of training. So, and there are only 7 modules. It takes about a year if you wanted to do a whole certification training program. Any other questions or last minute comments from our panelists?
I'd like to just agree with Lynn about just the amazing experience of being in person with everyone, and still on Facebook with everyone from my original class, and really just great community and connection. And that's added so much to my life and to my professional practice as well. So it's a great opportunity to be in connection with others, and also not only professionally but personally grow. And it's wow, it's just a very special experience, and I hope to see you all there.
Great, thank you, Kimberly. So if you want to register, or if you want to consider registering, if you go to theawakeningretreat.com, theawakeningretreat.com, that's where you can go to register. So take a look at that, and you know, the investment, if you think about the investment of the course and the pricelessness of the things that you heard our panelists say today, you know, it's just beyond worth it. So it gives you yourself, you know, your true self. So anything else?
Can I say one last thing? Yes.
Yeah,
sorry.
sure.
So I have a lot of other certifications. You know, I do tapping and emotion code and all those things, and they're great. They're great little tools. But the best thing about this one that's different than all these other ones is that you are empowering your client to do it themselves. And to me, that's just the hugest, biggest difference. And that's something that we teach too in the NAPT program through Dr. Ritamarie, is empowering the client through education on how they can take care of themselves. And that to me is that's a big important difference here, is that we're not trying to fix them. We're trying to introduce them to themselves so they can see and understand themselves.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that out, Lynn. I really love that, because there is a tendency for us as service workers to want to be the quote expert, right? And then create dependent relationships where they need you to come back to in order to be healthy. And to some extent, in the beginning, that's true. But we really want to wean them to be able to, as you said, Lynn, so beautifully, be empowered to know how and what to do to take care of themselves. And then what the transpersonal energy healing piece does is it helps address the inner part of us that is resistant to or afraid of, as Mary Lynn talked about, the fear, or Kimberly talked about the resistance, or the, you know, that it enables us to look at those parts of ourselves and get free of them. And then the gift of that shows up in every aspect of our life, not just our practice with our clients. So, and I love working with Ritamarie because she's so committed to that same approach. Mary Lynn, you wanted to make a closing remark?
Yeah, some of the things that you all have just said just reminded me of a couple things that I think are just so important. And one is that we do talk about finding the root cause for what people are dealing with. And in my experience, this is often the root cause. It's looking at the emotional piece that's getting in the way, that's blocking our blossoming of where we're going into health, of the immune system clicking into action. And secondly, the resistance that you just spoke about, Laura, for me, that was most apparent where I needed to break through was with my interaction with other people in the live class that I would miss if I was just doing something online. And it's identifying that resistance to where I need to move through to get to the shift of the new way of being with myself, and then being available for other people, including my clients.
That's great, Mary Lynn, and it's so true. It's like there's so much gold in our willingness and our need to understand how to work with our own resistances, and that's definitely a big piece of what we do in the course. So I want to thank you all so much for being here with us today, and the replay will go out, so you'll be able to listen to that. I really hope I get to meet all of you who were on the call today at the Awakening class. Please register and come and join us, and feel free to email me personally if you have any questions. Maybe, Lynn, you could put my email address on there. It's laurafineonline2@gmail.com. And I'd love to, and I hope I get to see you all down the road. So thanks for being here. And we'll say goodbye for now.